Good afternoon, everyone. Great pleasure to be here to celebrate the 2020 and 2021 McVicker Fellows. Um, Everyone's aware this is the highest honor that MIT gives to faculty for sustained contributions to undergraduate education. So it's really a special award for the fellows, and welcomes them into a group of people who are just as dedicated and committed as they are to doing everything they can to advance undergraduate education. We are doing two classes this year because a year ago today, of course, was an accelerated move out of people from campus. It was the last day that I had a tie on, in fact, until today. So it's an interesting thing to be wearing a tie again. It's usually the dinner that we have is spectacular. It's a wonderful opportunity for fellowship. We're not going to have all of that tonight. We will have a toast at the end. So I have a glass of wine sitting over there so that we can at least raise a glass to the new McVickers. But we're going to celebrate nonetheless. We're first going to hear some reflections on each of our McVickers, the 2020s first, from some of the nominators, one faculty and one student nominator. And then each of the 2020 McVickers will be able to share just a few words of their own. And so we'll move through the first four, the 2020s, that way. And then after that, we're going to hear reflections about Margaret McVicker, and also from her sister Victoria and her friend Sue Kendra. What many people I think know is that Victoria and Sue have really, in a very significant way, become the stewards of this program. They come up every year for the McVicker Day celebrations, and it's a wonderful opportunity. We go out to lunch ahead of time. It's unfortunate we won't be able to do that today, but it's great to have them here and to hear a few words from Victoria on this. So a special day. Program, of course, is in honor of the life and legacy of Margaret McVicker, who is a professor of physical science and also the Institute's first dean of undergraduate education. You will learn more about her in between the 2020 McVickers and the 2021 McVickers. And so after we get through that, then we'll just have an opportunity for a few closing words and a toast. So welcome. And what I will do now is turn to Chancellor Barnhart, who will begin the introduction of our 2020 McVicker Fellows.
As Ian said so well, welcome to this special, meaningful event for the MIT community, our annual celebration of the McVicker Faculty Fellows. The McVicker Faculty Fellows Program recognizes faculty who have made exemplary and sustained contributions to the teaching and education of undergraduates at the Institute. Together, the fellows form a small academy of scholars committed to exceptional instruction in innovation in education. The four new members who joined this academy in 2020 are Polina Anakiva, Mary Fuller, Will Tisdale, and Jacob White. We will start with celebrating Polina Anakiva. Polina is an associate professor of material science and engineering and brain and cognitive sciences. She received her PhD from MIT in 2009 and became a professor in the Department of Material Science and Engineering 2 years later. She was tenured in 2017. Her research in the field of bioelectronics, which combines material science, electronics, and neurobiology, seeks to better understand and treat brain disorders. Her teaching includes a core undergraduate subject, 3024, Electronic, Optical, and Magnetic Properties of Materials, and she is also mentor to and role model for many undergraduates. In her nomination, one of her students wrote, "Professor Anakiva not only allayed my worries, but realigned the outlook I had on the purpose of my education and what a career in science looked like. Most significantly, she gave me the courage to delve back into the science I loved. Congratulations, Polina. Now we'll hear from her nominators.
Hello, my name is Chris Shu, and I'm the Selapatas Professor of Metallurgy and a McVicker Faculty Fellow. I enthusiastically nominated my colleague, Professor Polina Anikeva, for the McVicker Fellowship. The Department of Material Science and Engineering, DMSE, is fortunate to have Professor Anikeva among our ranks, and we celebrate her excellence as an educator, as a mentor, and as a role model for our students. She's an exceptional teacher who has built a reputation as being tough but fair and incredibly inspiring. In Professor Anikeva, the DMSE faculty see a generational talent who is taking the message of our field to new places with courage and with style. Congratulations, Polina.
My name is Jimena Hasbach, and I'm a Course 3 alum from the class of 2019. I know Professor Polina Anikeva from being a student and a TA for her class 3024, and I was very proud to nominate her for this award. A quote from my nominating letter. Professor Anikeva's position as a role model for women in Course 3 cannot be overstated. Having such a strong and successful woman as a professor early in my undergraduate career has been really important for me and for other undergraduate women whom I have talked to. I distinctly remember Professor Anikeva drawing a sign on the blackboard for International Women's Day at the start of 3024 lecture my sophomore year and discussing the importance of the holiday for her, as well as giving a beautiful eulogy at the start of class the day after one of her role models, Professor Millie Dresselhaus, had passed away. These gestures may seem small, but they truly made an impact on me and speak to how Professor Anikeva relates to her students. I don't think I will forget them. Congrats, Paulina. You deserve this so much, and good luck with your new teaching endeavors this year. Bye.
I cannot be more overwhelmed and more honored and humbled for receiving McVicker Award and being invited into this fellowship of committed educators. So this is the most important award as an educator can have, as it was said, and it's just probably my sort of biggest educational aspiration that came true in this award. So I would like to first thank the McVicker family for their continued support of the education mission of MIT. It is really remarkable what you're continuing to do for us, for the Institute, and for our talented students. So thank you so much, and I look forward to meeting you in person when all of this is behind us. I would like to thank really talented students that rose to the challenge over and over and over again, no matter how much work I have thrown at them over the years, and seeing this sort of spark in their eyes as they realize what they're capable of how much more of intellectual maturity that they can achieve and rise to that was really inspiring to me and made me sort of try to rise to that challenge as well. I need to really thank the TA team, Jimena, and everyone who has worked with me over the years. 3024 has really been a team project. I could have never done anything without them. We really worked together, and through late night exam creations, writing of the comic book stories for every problem sets, these people have dedicated all their sort of spare time and life to teach and work with me during those semesters. And a little fairy tale about Jimena, who chose to celebrate her 21st birthday by writing a final exam for 3024 and going to a Lego store with the other TAs and myself. That's commitment. And finally, I would like to thank my friends and family who have tolerated my obsession with teaching and all the late nights that I spend meeting with teaching teams and students to create an educational experience and exams, and sort of work with them at the time when maybe normal people should be having dinner. So thank you all very much. I couldn't have done this without your support. And again, McVicker family, thank you so, so much for your wonderful educational mission.
Great words, Polina. This is our opportunity to all go off mute, but I will encourage you to go back on mute when we're done. And we're going to give a round of applause to Polina.
Now on to Mary Fuller. Mary is a professor of literature. She received both her MA and PhD in English and American literature from the Johns Hopkins University. Mary began teaching at MIT in 1989, received tenure in 1997, and was promoted to full professor in 2010. Mary served as associate chair of the Institute faculty from 2011 to 2013. From 2013 to 2019, she was head of the literature department. Much of her teaching is on poetry, but she frequently collaborates with instructors across the Institute. She has been developing a tool for the edX platform called PoetryViz, which enables students around the world to practice close reading through poetry annotation in an entirely new way. In her nomination, fellow McVicker Fellow Stephen Tapscott observed, "She's a colleague and a friend I never fail to learn from. In fact, at times I visited her class in order to learn how to teach certain texts that more properly belong in my field. She's a walking best practices dossier." Congratulations, Mary. Now we'll hear from her nominators.
Hi, I'm Arthur Barr from the Literature faculty, and it was my deep honor to nominate Mary Fuller for the McVicker Faculty Fellowship. Mary has a remarkable ability to convey the excitement of poetry to MIT students, who may start out resistant to a genre that can often seem deliberately obscure. Mary's approach is brilliantly and reassuringly pragmatic. For example, she organizes her CIH reading poetry subject around a series of concrete questions. How do rhyme schemes work? How do line breaks work? What distinguishes this thing we call a poem from all of the not poems out there? This emphasis on mechanics helps students first see and then theorize poetry's underlying hardwiring or coding. And that gives them practical means of appreciating something whose value lies precisely in not being a practical mode of expression. Mary makes that central paradox of poetry empowering, which is just one of the many reasons she is such a worthy McVicker Fellow. Deepest and warmest congratulations, Mary.
My name is Saren Kim, and I'm a Course 18 and 21L double major from the class of 2010. Professor Mary Fuller was my Europe supervisor in the summer of 2008, and I'm delighted to have nominated Professor Fuller for this award. I will read excerpts from my nomination letter. As a teacher, Mary was eager to allow students to reflect on their own lived experience and understand how much their experience might shape and inflect their own responses to sometimes politically challenging texts. Her teaching enabled non-humanities students to appreciate literature as a diverse, valuable, and rewarding resource for personal and social reflection. Of course, I know firsthand how interested and curious she is in her students' hopes and ambitions, because I have been a grateful recipient of her mentorship for the past 10 years. Mary has been that rare mentor who is able to combine personal openness and accessibility with intellectual rigor and, most importantly, a deep respect for her mentees. Many congratulations, Mary.
Well, this is very moving. You know, as Cindy said, I've been teaching at MIT for more than 30 years. And the longer backstory goes back to the underlinings in my mother's college English texts and the chalk in my father's office in the McGill Faculty of Engineering. These decades at MIT have been such an extraordinary learning experience that it takes some adjustment to think of it as teaching. We're all involved together in this big enterprise of trying to understand what the right questions are, how to best ask them, and how to find the next questions. So getting an award for that really feels like gilding the lily, on top of the real joy of getting to do this with MIT students and colleagues like So Young and Arthur and Stephen, and especially the people I've shared classrooms with, like my colleague Charles Shadle in music or Lindy Elkins-Tanton in EAPS. But I'm really deeply honored and grateful and moved by the kindness of the colleagues and former students who set this in motion. And I also want to acknowledge the vision and commitment of MIT and the McVicker family in recognizing teaching. We all think that good teaching matters, but there's something that is fundamentally ephemeral and invisible about the classroom experience. The seminar style classes that I know best are like performances with no audience or witnesses but the participants. They happen and they're over. It's like the poet Elizabeth Bishop says about human knowledge. It's flowing and flown. So we trust that these transient experiences change us, and that as we go forward, those changes touch off others over the scale of a career or a lifetime. So I really appreciate that MIT is continuing to diversify its bets on a portfolio of different kinds of teaching, from tiny to massive, and with all different levels of instrumentation and mediation. 2020 has certainly provided a lesson in how what starts at small scale doesn't always stay that way. It's also highlighted what it means to us to be present together in time, tangibly and visibly or not. Thank you very much.
Mary, thank you for all that you do. It's wonderful to have you as a McVicker Fellow, and we applaud you.
Next up is Will Tisdale. Will is the ARCO Career Development Professor of Chemical Engineering. He received his PhD from the University of Minnesota. After a year as a postdoctoral associate at MIT, Will became an assistant professor in 2012 and received tenure in 2019. His research focuses on nanotechnology and energy transport. Will's colleague and McVicker fellow Christela Prather called him a curriculum fixer for his reform efforts in Course 10. One of his former students wrote in his nomination, "My whole class waited for his lectures like for a small holiday. And if one had the pleasure of attending them, one would know why." Professor Tisdale's teaching was as close to perfect as I can imagine. It was concise, it was clear, it was inspiring. Never did he rush through the material, nor did he dwell on something trivial. Congratulations, Will. Let's hear more from his nominators.
I'm Paula Hammond, David H. Koch Professor and Department Head in the Department of Chemical Engineering. It was with the greatest enthusiasm that I nominated William A. Tisdale as a McVicker Fellow. What is particularly unique about Will's teaching style is his ability to show understanding and compassion while teaching students in a rigorous and complete manner. He is not only able to convey important engineering concepts, but also instill in students a great appreciation for what they can do with the knowledge gained. Will constantly and consciously makes efforts to engage students and demonstrate his belief in their capabilities by committing himself, being available via email and other means to ensure that students are able to work out complex concepts with him until they are clear. This, combined with his highly effective and clear lecture style and engaging teaching methods, has made Will Tisdale the most prominent and recognized undergraduate teacher in our department, and certainly among the top at our institute.
My name is Vanessa Kitova, and I am a chemical biological engineering student, class of 2021. I know Professor William Tisdale from 10 to 13, a chemical engineering thermodynamics course, and was delighted to nominate him for this honor. Being in his class was so special because every student could feel special and genuinely cared for. He created an atmosphere of curiosity and safety, with students asking questions more than with any other lecturer I have seen, an impressive feat especially at MIT. It is that combination of outstanding teaching and a genuinely personable approach that made Professor Tisdale's class one of the best experiences at MIT for me. Congratulations, Professor Tisdale.
Thank you, Paula and Vanessa, for those really kind words. I think that a professor's primary job is to instill excitement, especially in the physical sciences. I personally can't understand how you would not love to spend all day thinking about thermodynamics or about the partial differential equations governing energy transport processes. And if my students aren't as excited as I am about the work, then it's because I've failed to explain it clearly to them, because the excitement is self-evident. Yeah, it's really humbling and honoring to receive this award. I think all of the McVicker Fellows here would say that none of us teach the way we teach because our goal is to win an award. We do it because we feel an obligation to the students and a compulsion to explain things clearly and to do a good job. But it sure does feel nice to be recognized for it. So thank you to the McVicker family, and thank you to the MIT administration for organizing this award. I would just like to thank especially mentors in the department, Alan Hatton and Crystal Prather in particular, for setting examples for me in ways to go above and beyond and commit yourselves to the undergraduate students here at MIT. And to my family for understanding that good enough is not always good enough.
Will, thank you. I share your enthusiasm for thermodynamics. So that one is easy. Just wonderful to have you as a McVicker. Congratulations.
Our final 2020 fellow is Jacob White. Jacob is a Cecil H. Green Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. He completed his undergraduate degree at MIT and then received a master's degree and doctorate from the University of California, Berkeley. Jacob has been a member of the faculty since 1987, becoming associate professor in 1991 and full professor in 1996. Colleagues and students alike observed Jacob's dedication not just to teaching, but to improving teaching throughout the Institute. He has both a revised curriculum and developed new subjects to great success. A colleague in EECS wrote the following in Jacob's nomination. He is relentlessly enthusiastic in class and in the laboratory, where every question is an opportunity to promote critical thinking, enhance insights, or prompt yet more fundamental questions through dialogue. His energy and enthusiasm are infectious and serve as fuel for staff and students alike. Congratulations, Jacob. And now, more from his nominators.
My name is Joel Voldman, Professor of Electrical Engineering in the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. I was delighted to nominate Jacob White for this honor. Jacob is an extraordinarily dedicated and innovative educator. One example of this is his collaboration with physics on 802. Electricity and magnetism is a critical GIR for electrical engineering. There was a sentiment amongst a substantial fraction of the E faculty that 802 had an opportunity to improve excitement in E&M and engineering design if the class could incorporate some design labs. In the long term, this could potentially lead to an increase in students declaring EE. Jacob, mostly on his own, undertook an effort to build rapport with the faculty teaching 802 to convince them to try design labs in the 802 teal format. The challenge is substantial. how to create design labs that work within the time and format constraints of Teal, are robust and inexpensive enough to work with hundreds of students, but flexible enough to allow for true design. The physics faculty piloted some labs in spring 2018, and then ran an entire section of 802 with a series of labs in fall 2018. The experiment has been deemed a success, and both physics and ECS are excited to see this collaboration continue. In short, Jacob is an amazing educator and teacher and richly deserving of being a McVicker Faculty Fellow. Congratulations, Jacob.
Hello, my name is Alex Lutz, and I graduated with my electrical engineering degree in 2018. I knew Jacob White because I TA'd and yarked with him several times, and I'm delighted to nominate him for this faculty fellowship. Jacob has a constant urge to innovate, always bringing new techniques and tools that can be used to aid in his teaching. In addition, Jacob always provides insightful, fun, and organized lectures that aid students in the material. Outside the classroom, Jacob's been an amazing mentor, providing guidance and leadership to help students pursue their goals. It is these qualities, innovation, mentorship, and leadership, that I believe make Jacob uniquely qualified for the Margaret McVicker Fellowship. Congratulations, Jacob.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for those very kind words, Joel and Alex. I particularly appreciate it because being selected for the McVicker Fellow was particularly important to me. It's partly because I'm joining a club whose members are some of my favorite colleagues at the Institute, but that's not the main reason. See, in 1977, in the fall, I was a freshman undergraduate with an overdue progress report for my undergraduate research opportunities program project. And that meant I had to go visit the director of the program, Professor Margaret McVicker. I remember walking into her office and trying to stammer out an apology for my late report, but she'd have none of it. She waved it away as if it was some noxious gas. And instead, she asked me what my project was and then quizzed me for the next 20 minutes about making me explain exactly what new concepts I had learned as part of the project. And then she sent me on my way. You know, we forget sometimes, but at 18, you can still have moments, pivotal moments in your life, and that was one of them for me. It set me on an academic path, one where I look for problems that are not just interesting or important, but whose solution really teaches you something. Fast forward 45 years, and now I spend most of my time working with colleagues trying to inject hands-on activities into undergraduate classes. A daunting thing to do during a pandemic, I admit. But getting parts to students and coming up with interesting things for them to build, that's not the challenging thing. What is really difficult is coming up with design problems that really help students learn the technical material in their classes. Finding interesting problems whose solutions teach you something. Professor McVicker, with her emphasis on the pedagogical value of academic research, has been the bookends of my career. So winning an award that bears her name, nothing could be a greater honor. Thank you.
Jacob, thank you for sharing those reflections. Well, it's a perfect segue. Before we get to that, let's congratulate you on membership with this wonderful group of McVickers. So I mentioned that it was a good segue because now between the 2020s and the 2021 McVickers, we're going to hear a little bit about Margaret McVicker. And that's from a couple different sources. One from an anniversary video, from the 25th anniversary video, a segment of that we will play, and then we will hear some reflections from Victoria about Margaret, as well as her own sort of participation in this event. As I mentioned, Victoria and her friend Sue are really the stewards of this program, and year after year are just an important part of our celebration of outstanding undergraduate teaching. So that's what's next, and then we will get to a similar segment for the 2021 McVickers.
In May 1991, Charles Vess used the occasion of his inauguration as the 15th president of MIT to describe an MIT education for the future. President Vess described an emerging belief.
Many believe that our mission has become distorted and that education has been lost in the desire and responsibility to excel in research.
He quickly challenged this perception.
Educational success at MIT depends above all else on the commitment and inventiveness of our faculty. Excellence in undergraduate teaching must be rewarded and encouraged.
To reward this excellence, President Vest established an endowed program recognizing the faculty for their exceptional undergraduate teaching, mentoring, and educational innovation. It was only appropriate then that this fellowship be named to honor the life and contributions of the late Professor Margaret McVicker, an outstanding educator and scientist who served as the first dean for undergraduate education from 1985 to 1990. McVicker was a devoted proponent of reform and improvement in the undergraduate curriculum. Margaret was always at least one issue ahead of us. Norma McGavin Norland, the former assistant director of UROP, observed. McVicker advocated for many important issues, changes that led to revisions to the Undergraduate General Institute requirements, innovations in the pass no credit freshman grading system, and increased diversity in the student body. One of McVicker's most noted accomplishments was the 1969 creation of UROP, which made hands-on research experience a regular part of undergraduate life at MIT. The program is emulated around the globe and has been cited for national excellence by the U.S. Secretary of Education, the National Science Foundation, and private foundations. McVicker believed that an MIT education ought to fit the context of a student's life and make students aware of their societal responsibilities. It is not technicians that we seek to prepare, nor bench-tied engineers practicing narrow specialties and intent on deadlines and objectives devised elsewhere, she said. Our purpose is to direct the best minds toward inquiries and enterprises concerned for the human condition. Since then, MIT has honored Margaret McVicker and realized Charles Vest's goal. Over 100 McVicker Faculty Fellows have been selected through an annual nomination process beginning in 1992. The McVicker Faculty Fellows Program recognizes and rewards faculty for sustained commitment to undergraduate instruction and educational innovation inside the classroom and beyond. They hail from all corners of the Institute and represent a diverse range of academic disciplines. Together, the Fellows form a small academy of scholars committed to exceptional instruction and innovation in education, embodying through their work the continuing promise of an MIT education for the future.
Hello, and congratulations to the McVicker Faculty Fellows for 2020 and 2021. My name is Victoria McVicker, and for those of you who don't know me, I am Margaret's sister. I am very honored to once again be part of this wonderful celebration, and which recognizes the tremendous work of these 8 McVicker Fellows. My friend Sue and I usually fly up from Florida each year to celebrate this exciting day, but this year we will be celebrating virtually. The McVicker administrative team asked me to say a few words about the program and what it means to me. I've been flying up to Cambridge for McVicker Day from the inception in 1992. I've only missed 2 years. My mother and sister Ann, who have both passed, would look forward each year to the trip and the big celebration, as well as meeting the distinguished McVicker Fellows and listening to how they impacted their students and influenced education at the Institute. The past few years, my friend Sue has traveled with me, and we both enjoy not only the opportunity to meet the new fellows, but to also hear about their continued work and their impact on education. What's always a delight are the wonderful symposia and talks organized by the MacVicar administrative team with so many diverse approaches to education. As I reflect, I think about the beginning of the UROP program in the early 70s. I actually was involved in the generation of the first rather thin UROP directory. For me, seeing the UROP program grow each year throughout the Institute, watching the number of departments continually increase to give challenging learning opportunities to undergraduates, and then hearing about the spread of UROP programs to other colleges and universities are some of Margaret's proudest accomplishments that I hold very dear to me. One thing that has remained constant through the years has been the unwavering dedication to the undergraduate education by MIT's elite faculty. Every year, I see outstanding faculty members join this special group. Each year, I am also blown away by the critical and often life-changing impacts that the MacVicar Fellow makes on MIT's undergraduate students. The MacVicar Fellowship is representative of the dedication that the entire Institute puts on challenging these young minds into gifted world changers. I know many of you contribute greatly through your work and research outside of the classroom, and the positive impacts you make on these young students are truly amazing. Thank you for allowing Sue, my family, and me to celebrate alongside you in the past and virtually this year. Thank you for honoring my sister Margaret's name and legacy, and with your dedication and hard work. It's truly a blessing to be part of this day every year. I'm looking forward to next year when Sue and I can fly up once again and celebrate the right way. Once again, congratulations to the MacVicar Fellows of 2020 and 2021.
Victoria, Sue, thank you for being such great friends of this program, of MIT in general. You're just such a big part of celebrating excellence in undergraduate education. Welcome you to say anything else if you'd like to people here. We do miss not having lunch with you today, I can say that.
Thank you, and we miss being there. Thank you for always having us be part of this. We really enjoy it. Congratulations to these 8 fellows. Amazing. Just amazing work you do for all your students.
Great. Thank you, guys. We're now going to turn to the 2021 MacVicar Fellows, and they will be introduced by Provost Marty Schmidt.
You know, I feel it's a distinct privilege of being provost that I'm able to appoint the MacVicar Faculty Fellows each year and to co-host the MacVicar Day dinner with the Chancellor. I'm of course extremely disappointed that we're not able to do this in person and to meet all the former and current MacVicar Faculty Fellows, as well as our new fellows and their families. Most especially, I'll miss not being able to sit with Margaret's sister Victoria and her friend Susan Kendra for this annual event. We are also touched to have Victoria and Susan with us every year for this important celebration. Lastly, I'm very sorry that I can't join you today in person for this celebration. When President Vest created an endowed program recognizing the faculty for their exceptional undergraduate teaching, mentoring, and educational innovation, he made an important contribution to the Institute. Indeed, next year, we will celebrate the 30-year anniversary of this program, hopefully in person. Each year, the nominations for this distinguished honor grow more and more impressive. And today, we will honor and celebrate the induction of the 4 newest fellows: Larry Guth, Elsa Olivetti, Mike Short, and Michael Yaffe. Let me now introduce Larry Guth. who is the Claude E. Shannon Professor of Mathematics. Larry received his PhD from MIT in 2005 and joined the MIT faculty as a professor in 2012. His teaching includes both General Institute requirements and advanced graduate and undergraduate subjects. Now, normally, I would read some quotes from the nominators, but this year we're actually going to have the nominators themselves speak to the fellows' accomplishments. Having said that, I'd like to say that one thing that stands out in Larry's nominations are comments that speak to his ability to distill advanced concepts or the thought processes that go into his most sophisticated papers in ways that allow students to follow and think like mathematicians. In fact, one of his student nominators wrote, "Before coming to MIT, I had decided that mathematics was not for me. But it was through Professor Guth's instruction, I was able to once more realize a passion I thought I had lost." Before I hand it over to the nominators, I can't resist but mention that with this nomination, we have a first, a multi-generational fellow link. Larry's father, Alan Guth, was named a McVicker Fellow in 2002. So congratulations, Larry, and let's hear from your nominators.
My name is Michel Goemens. I'm the head of the Department of Mathematics. I was delighted to nominate Larry Guth for McVicker Faculty Fellowship. During the past academic year, Larry was teaching both GIRs in mathematics, 1801 in the fall and 1802 in the spring, and doing course development for both of them. Is completely unheard of. Larry has the rare gift of being able to actively communicate mathematics with people at all levels, whether they've been immersed in mathematics since their early childhood, or they simply discovered the field as a first-year MIT student. Congratulations, Larry. I'm proud to be your colleague.
Hi, I'm Dina and I'm a junior majoring in math. I first met Professor Larry Guth in the spring of my freshman year when he taught my multivariable calculus class, which he did so well that I asked him to be my advisor. I was so excited to nominate him for this award. One of my favorite memories from Professor Guth's class was one day he came in and noticed that it was sunny, and it was the first sunny day in a few weeks. So he opened up the lecture by looking back at the windows and saying, "It's a beautiful day and we're going to do some beautiful math today." Since then, as my advisor, he's encouraged me to take classes that I really enjoy and pushed me to be the best I can. And he's helped me do a lot of beautiful math. Thank you so much, and congrats, Larry.
Wow. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Dina. That was touching. It's a big honor to be to join this group. I want to thank the McVicker family for making this program, this community, it seems like, that I'm excited to get to talk with and be a part of. And I want to thank my family for supporting me and helping me try to do a good job and helping take my mind off work when it's time to take my mind off work. When I was growing up, I had really wonderful teachers. It was a special part of my life, and I still think about them often. One of them is my dad, Alan Guth, who's a professor of physics at MIT. And I remember talking and exploring math and physics with him when I was a kid. I also remember when I was in high school, he was teaching 801, and he would talk with me about it at breakfast. And I got the sense from him that this was a special and exciting thing. And then 20 some years later, I had the chance to teach 1801. Another one is Michael Narozny, who volunteered to do math enrichment at my elementary school. He was an MIT alumni, and he taught me math that I didn't think I was ready to learn. And I also remember him talking about reading Finnegan's Wake, and it took him 7 years to read this book that was in several languages, and what a great experience, what a great part of his life that was. And this sense of curiosity that he communicated to me, that he was exciting to me. Another one is my fourth grade teacher, who wrote a book about teaching and about the lives of teachers that I was rereading recently. One of the things she says in the book is that many teachers do a lot of their work alone and even can feel a little isolated. And for most of my career, I did all my teaching alone and rarely even went to another teacher's class. And this fall, I had the pleasure of teaching together with somebody, with Sanjay Mahajan, and we were working on 1801. and what he brought really opened new windows for me. And so I'm excited about getting to work with other people and talk with other people. So it's a big honor to get to be a McVicar, and it's also a pleasure because it consists of like having lunch with people and talking about teaching, which is just something I really like to do. So thank you very much.
Larry, thank you. It's actually just wonderful to hear you talking about the teachers who influenced you. And I think one of the things that we know is for all of the McVicar fellows, they've had that impact on many other people, including you. So welcome, very proud to have you as part of the fellowship.
Elsa Olivetti is Esther and Harold E. Edgerton Associate Professor in Material Science and Engineering. She completed her PhD at MIT in 2007 and was a research scientist in the Materials Systems Lab from 2009 to 2013, joining the MIT faculty in 2014 with promotion to Associate Professor in 2018. Importantly, and most significantly, or very significantly in fact, is that Elsa is the first Junior McVicar Fellow to be named since 2009. She is known best for her contributions to NEAT, which stands for New Engineering Education Transformation, in leading its Advanced Materials Machines thread, and for her efforts leading the curriculum reform for Course 3. It isn't often that curricular reform features so strongly in faculty and students' nomination letters, but that is the case for Elsa. The many student letters comment on their appreciation of her work. One student wrote, "I realize how extraordinary Professor Olivetti is as a bridge between the undergraduate community and faculty, which uniquely enabled her to reimagine a curriculum that had not been touched for over a decade." Congratulations, Elsa. Let's hear more from your nominators.
Hi, I'm Jeff Grossman, Department Head of Material Science and Engineering and the Morton and Claire Golder and Family Professor in Environmental Systems. It is a great privilege as Department Head and a McVicar Faculty Fellow to congratulate my two colleagues. You heard earlier from Professor Chris Hsu about the accomplishments of Professor Polina Anikiva. And in a moment, you'll hear from Professor Lorna Gibson about those of Elsa Olivetti. DMSE is fortunate to have two outstanding undergraduate educators and mentors, both as collaborators and role models for our students. We look forward to their continued contributions to the Institute and to our community. Congratulations, Polina and Elsa.
My name is Lorna Gibson. I'm the Matula S. Salapatis Professor of Material Science and Engineering, and I'm a McVicar Faculty Fellow. It was a pleasure to recommend Elsa in the strongest possible terms for the McVicar Fellowship. Elsa is all over anything to do with undergraduate teaching in our department. Her contributions to undergraduate education, her enthusiasm for teaching, and her care of our students is simply extraordinary, far beyond what I have seen in any other junior faculty in my 36 years on the MIT faculty. Elsa is a treasure, a wonderful educator, and a gifted leader in educational innovation. Congratulations, Elsa.
Hi, my name is Ava Waits. I'm a student in Material Science and Engineering in the class of 2021. I knew Professor Olivetti from taking her class 304 Materials Processing and now doing my senior thesis in her group. I was delighted to nominate her for this honor because I think she's incredibly deserving. In addition to crafting an inspiring and engaging curriculum, Professor Olivetti excels at teaching because her students feel comfortable and supported. No matter how busy the day, she begins class with a smile and a comment about how excited she is about what we're about to learn. To help us get through the hour-and-a-half lecture during the generally sleepy time of 2:30 to 4 p.m., she would bring snacks for a 10-minute break, or in case some students had not been able to get lunch. These things seem minor to mention, but I think in many ways it's those small gestures of kindness and support that made the class feel comfortable. It showed me a professor that cared about the overall lives and well-being of her students. Thank you so much, Elsa, for everything you do, and on behalf of all the students that have had the gift of interacting with you, congratulations.
My goodness gracious. So we know that the magic of MIT is its people, and we've gotten to experience that in spades this afternoon. Awesome. Oh, maybe we're seeing a video again. Okay, I'll keep going. The honor of receiving this award, as Mary Fuller so elegantly said earlier in the ceremony, is that I really have gotten so much more than I've given. And I'm really grateful to all of my colleagues within Course 3 for working tirelessly to design our new curriculum and all the links we discovered in our courses in that process, and then their patience in rolling that new curriculum out in this crazy year. I'm grateful for the trust of the department head at the time, Chris Hsu, and now department head Jeff Grossman, associate head Caroline Ross in that process, as well as all the amazing alumni and students who gave input in that. Rahul, Ava, and Claire, I think, are here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with and learn from others in the School of Engineering through the NEAT program. And I even got to sit in on that classroom we talked about of Will Tisdale's, and I can attest to all that being true. Grateful to Ian Waits, Ed Crawley, Pekka Hosoi, Bobby Mitra for their tireless efforts in that. And to the Global Classroom Fund and Engineers for a Small World that made it possible for me to take those students to Germany for a week. And I'm humbled and so grateful for the company that one joins among the extraordinary educators that make up the McVicker community. John Oxendorf for going on walking tours with him. He takes his students on, his amazing compassion for their well-being. Maria Yang and Mike Short on learning about design thinking and engineering. Craig Carter's devotion to computational thinking in our department. And Paulina Anakiva for her setting high standards we just heard about for her students that I got to benefit from teaching downstream of her in the core progression. Lorna Gibson taught me about making my teaching personal, about having my notes at the same aspect ratio as the Blackboard that you're teaching on. John Sadaway for knowing your audience, partnering with my students, making connections across content. And of course, all the amazing support we all get from TAs over the years. And I'm grateful for those little moments in class when you feel like you're co-creating with the students that are sitting there as they ask questions and you learn something from a new perspective or a new way a concept can be interpreted, and getting to witness the ways in which they teach each other. I came to the job at MIT for the research opportunity and ecosystem, and I've grown to love the teaching, and that is a testament to how wonderful the community here is at MIT. Of course, I'm grateful to the McVicker family for their support of the undergraduate community. And perhaps most of all, I'm grateful for the secret that I have up my sleeve, which is that my partner, Professor Justin Reich, is one of the most amazing educators I know. He's been a teacher his entire life and career. I'm grateful for the ways he's helped me make my learning more active, my teaching more active and inclusive. And watching our 10-year-old Adela, who seems to have been born with that same didactic instinct in teaching her 7-year-old sister, Ren. So thank you so much for this honor and the chance to celebrate together in this weird, strange world we live in. And my students and colleagues have been such a source of inspiration. I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Elsa, we are grateful to have you as part of MIT, part of the McVickers, and just sort of wonderful to celebrate you in this way for all that you do for the students at MIT and your colleagues. Thank you.
Mike Short is the class of 42 Associate Professor of Nuclear Science and Engineering. He is, as we like to say, an MIT lifer, completing his bachelor's, master's, and PhD at MIT. His PhD in Nuclear Science and Engineering was awarded in 2010, and he joined the MIT faculty in 2013, receiving tenure in 2020. Like Elsa, Mike is known for curricular reform and for leading a NEAT thread as well. In his case, renewable energy machines. The curricular reform Mike has championed emphasizes hands-on activities in course 22. Another dimension of his work has resulted in the expansion of the UROP program in nuclear science and engineering. As Professor Richard Lester wrote, much of the success of the nuclear science and engineering UROP program came from a philosophical change engineered by Mike, which he called no experience required, no questions. In Mike's view, no UROP student should ever be turned away from a project due to lack of experience. This has resulted in a significant increase in the number of students participating in nuclear science and engineering UROPs. Congratulations for all you've done, Mike, and let's hear from your nominators.
My name is Ann White, Professor and Head, Department of Nuclear Science and Engineering, and SOE Distinguished Professor of Engineering. I was delighted to nominate Mike Short for this important honor. Mike's passion for teaching and mentoring and his enormously positive impact on students makes him not only very special in our department, but very special at MIT. He is an extraordinarily gifted individual scientifically and technically, but his most important trait is that he's always focused on doing what is needed for the greater good. His excellence in teaching is not only something he's worked very hard to develop, it is also deeply ingrained in who he is. Mike is MIT through and through. He is an example of the best we can offer the world, and he will make MIT proud as a McVicker Fellow.
Hello, my name is Miles Stapleberg, and I'm a nuclear science and engineering major from the class of 2021 at MIT. I've had the pleasure of having Professor Mike Short as my academic advisor, my UROP supervisor, and a personal mentor. And over the past 38 courses and 3.5 years at MIT, I can really say with conviction that no other professors had such a profound and positive impact on my life. Mike's really been there for me when classes were impossible or when my research wasn't really going anywhere, and he's always known what to say to push me in the right direction. And what's incredible is I'm not the only student that he's impacted in this way. And an example is when I sent out a survey on the state of nuclear science and engineering at MIT, when I asked what's the first thing people think of when they hear NSC, well, the mode answer was Mike Short. So congratulations, Mike. Thank you so much for all you've done.
Wow, thanks so much, Miles, and everyone who worked on my nomination, and a special thank you to all the McVicker Fellows. I think Miles put it best. If he thinks I'm delighted I've had an outsized impact on his life, because so many McVicker Fellows have done the same for me and every one of my alum friends. And as you heard, I'm a lifer. I've got a lot of alums, and the stories that we swap together are almost always experiences with McVicker Fellows. There's no group of people who I can say has had a more outsized impact on where I am now than the McVicker Fellows. And a few examples. My freshman year, my first class in 3091, Don Sadaway, one of the first McVicker Fellows, really got my attention in material science by pouring liquid nitrogen into my backpack in an auditorium of 500 students. I never missed getting there early to get the front row seat. That was what I woke up to do. It's hard to get an 18-year-old up in the morning, but Don managed to do it. All the way up to fast forward to my faculty career here. Teaching and research seemed to be on track, but my health wasn't, and it was an article about Helena Anakeva and her passion for both teaching, research, and running that made me put my shoes back on and get myself back into shape, which ultimately had an outsized impact on everything here. But what's so special about joining this cohort of people that have had a huge impact on my life as an equal is they embody the ethos at MIT that everyone across the world strives to achieve. 2 years ago, I was sent on a mission to the National University of Mongolia by the International Atomic Energy Agency. And they wanted me to distill some findings to say, how can NUM excel in nuclear education? And on the short list of bullet points was establish a McVicker Fellow program. Signal to everyone that works there, students, staff, and faculty, that your educational incentives value teaching as much as research. And that gets into why I do what I do. I see my purpose in life to create scientists. And with that philosophical thing from the get-go, you focus more on the people, how they're doing day to day, making sure they enjoy things day to day. Science is a convenient and inevitable byproduct of making science or making scientists, but it's ultimately more enjoyable. I did want to thank two people, especially Richard Lester for hiring me, but even before that, taking a huge chance and letting me teach the nuclear design course as a postdoc back in 2011. I imagine now that was a pretty big risk to take, but it's ultimately what made me switch from research scientist to teaching, because that's what I realized I wanted to do. I wanted to make scientists. I wanted to interact with the wonderful students at MIT. and to Sid Yip, who's been an amazing mentor from my first day in NSE through to today. And especially to all of the students who are the reason I stay up late at night, the reason I fight through the ethical treatment of humans in science committees so I can throw their toenails in the reactor and get them the information safely on their problem sets. And especially to my wife, Marina, and son, Philip, for tolerating me staying up late at weird hours in the morning and babbling to them about all the strange things I do in class with the goal of getting people's attention and sparking the interest that I hope they'll have in nuclear science. So thanks to everybody. And again, it's an honor to join this cohort as an equal because you've been the people I've looked up to all my life.
Mike, thanks. Having personally been the recipient of a few emails from you that say, how would I just stay up all night and code this? Because it'll help the students. I can tell you that you're as much an inspiration to all of us as some of the McVickers may have been to you. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hey, Mike.
Michael Yaffe is the David H. Koch Professor of Science and Professor of Biology and Biological Engineering at MIT. He received his MD and PhD from Case Western Reserve University. Michael joined the MIT faculty in 2000, received tenure in 2006, and was promoted to full professor in 2009. While he's best known for teaching 705, which is general biochemistry, an important course subject, he also has contributed to curriculum innovation in biology and biological engineering. Somehow, he does all this while still a practicing trauma surgeon. After serving in the Middle East as a member of the Medical Corps of the Armed Forces Reserve, he returned and became actively involved in MIT's ROTC program. For students, Michael is a role model. One student wrote, "He has taught us through his action what a true scientist is, how science is taught to young pupils, how sophisticated concepts can be effectively communicated to the public, and how deeply a devoted physician cares about and cares for his patients, his community, and his country." Congratulations, Michael. Let's hear from your nominators.
My name is Alan Grossman. I'm a professor of biology and the biology department head. It was with great enthusiasm and the strongest support from students and his faculty colleagues that we nominated Professor Michael Yaffe for the McVicker Faculty Fellow Teaching Award. Michael mixes rigor and showmanship in presenting cutting-edge findings in classical biochemistry, all combined into a pedagogy that is captivating and effective. His approach to teaching is informed by his diverse training and professional experiences in material science, biophysical chemistry, and medicine. Indeed, Michael currently is a trauma surgeon who continues to teach surgery, not at MIT, although he has been known to draw blood, and Michael is an attending physician at local hospitals. He's also served several tours of duty in Middle East conflict zones and in Central America as an active member of the Medical Corps of the Armed Forces Reserves. Of course, in his spare time, he runs a world-renowned research laboratory that focuses on cell biology and cancer. It is not surprising then that Michael is able to effectively communicate with the wide range of our students, engineers, scientists, pre-meds, and others, because he has been or still is one of them. Michael's extraordinary contributions to teaching and mentoring undergraduates at MIT are legendary, and he is highly deserving of a McVicker Faculty Fellowship. Congratulations, Michael.
My name is Kelly Chen, and I'm a 2021 majoring in math and chemistry. I took 705 General Biochemistry with Professor Michael Yaffe in spring 2019, and I was delighted to nominate him for this honor. 705 was one of the most meaningful and exciting academic experiences I have ever had. As a freshman, I intended to major in chemistry and biology, but I discovered a passion for pure math instead and planned to stop pursuing my interests in science post-undergrad. 705 made me fall back in love with science, in large part due to Prof. Yaffe. What I remember most is his encouragement and support outside of class. He was very approachable at office hours and would often stay late if students had more questions. My math and chemistry heavy background was rather unusual for 705, and I initially felt out of place, but Prof. Yaffe treated it as a valuable perspective rather than a liability. He was the first person who actively encouraged me to pursue an interdisciplinary trajectory and helped me believe that I could do it. I consider Prof. Yaffe to be a deeply supportive mentor and role model. Thanks to him, I rediscovered my passion for science and realized that I don't have to follow the crowd when it comes to careers. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Kelly. To me, this is the greatest honor I can imagine receiving at MIT, and I am truly honored. I have to start by thanking the undergraduate students who have enriched my life more than I can express in words, and who have motivated me throughout my career here at MIT. Teaching is a two-way street. We learn from each other. And although I'm fortunate to be the recipient of this award, it's only because of the support I've received that this has been possible. I want to specifically thank the Digital Learning Group at MIT, especially Drs. Mary Ellen Wilchout and Dr. Darcy Gordon. I had the privilege of teaching for over a decade with Professor Gene Brown, a master educator and the former Dean of Science, and that was incredibly inspiring. Professors Dave Bartel, Peter Kim, and Tom Rajbandari were excellent co-teachers, and I especially have to acknowledge my colleague, Professor Matt Vanderheiden, with whom I've had the pleasure of teaching 705 for the last decade. I'm tremendously grateful to Professors Alan Grossman, Monty Krieger, himself a McVicker Fellow, and Richard Hines, who all lobbied hard and encouraged me continually to devise new and innovative ways to teach biology and biochemistry. This recognition and award is only possible because of the vision of Margaret McVicker and the generosity of the McVicker family, and I know all of us are incredibly grateful to you for continuing her mission. Finally, I have to acknowledge a few people in my own life who have fueled my passion for undergraduate teaching. First and foremost, I have to thank Miss Jane Mazer, my high school science teacher, who taught us college biochemistry in high school. She inspired not only a dedication to teaching within me, but also in dozens of other students who have since gone on to become biology and biological engineering faculty and physician scientists at many universities around the country. That's quite a legacy. She would be so proud of what the McVicker family has done. Professor Ed Kramer was my mentor as an undergraduate in material science at Cornell University, and my teaching style and methods mirror what I saw him do and the manner in which he taught me. Finally, I need to thank my wife, Dr. Sungyeon Pai, and my sons, Samkyu and Mingyu, who have supported me throughout this journey, including many, many late nights of lecture preparation. And they've often been the unwilling recipients of my lectures repeatedly during preparation. I cannot thank them enough. Let me simply say that teaching MIT students is a privilege and an incredibly rewarding experience. The students at MIT are so smart and they make connections between concepts so quickly that teaching becomes an educational experience for all of us. I will say that one of the clinical trials that we have going now in COVID-19 was completely inspired by my teaching and the students' input in 705. Thank you very much.
Mike, you're one of the people who your resume looks like it was written out of a movie script, in my opinion. You know, famed scientist, marvelous teacher, trauma surgeon, serves his country. You know, I'm not sure how many more things you can fit into your life, but it's truly impressive. And we're just very thankful that among the things that you do at the highest level is teaching undergraduate education at MIT. So thank you. It's now my opportunity just to say a few words in closing. And as I said, I brought a real glass of wine here. So we are going to have a real toast, at least in my room here. You all heard a little bit about what people thought about you. I want to tell you that it just doesn't even, you know, scratch the sort of surface of how broad and deep the nomination packages are for all of you. It's one of these things that I lead the advisory committee that makes recommendations to Marty each year, and we ask you know, other McVicker fellows to participate, and we almost never get a no, because it's just one of the most sort of fulfilling and heartwarming things. You read these sort of 50-page compendiums of letters from students and colleagues talking about how amazing each of you are. And it's really hard because, you know, there's just so many amazing people that are nominated. And for each of you, you know, your nominations just were at a level that it's just sort of undeniable. And it's really a great, fun thing to do, to read the accolades of your colleagues and your students about all that you do to really advance education, just as people, as MIT educators. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I want to offer my congratulations to each of you on that. I want to, as I said, encourage everyone, if you have any kind of a glass, or if not, don't worry about it, but I'm going to at least toast you for just marvelous contributions to undergraduate education. Congratulations. And now what I want to do is just thank some important people. First and foremost, I want to thank Victoria and Sue for joining us, even though it's in a remote way. I want to thank the nominators who wrote all of the marvelous letters. As I said, the packages contain typically more than a dozen letters, often well more than that. I want to thank the provost and the chancellor for helping us celebrate these wonderful new McVickers. I want to thank MIT Conference Services and MIT Video Production. As you can tell, we were using some recorded things, some live things, you know, applause tracks, you know, interesting things like that I've never had experience with before. But I think it all worked out really well, and it's been a nice opportunity to celebrate the new McVickers. I want to thank other members of the McVicker Advisory Committee who I think very happily joined me in reading through all the nomination packages that led to the new McVickers here. And I want to thank in particular people in the Office of the Registrar, Piero Ciccone, Kathleen MacArthur, and Nicole, for all the work that you have done to just make this work smoothly, from sending out the emails, you know, asking for nominations, to compiling those, to managing the review process, to pulling this all together in just a wonderful way. So thank you guys for all you do to support this program, not just with the selection process, but throughout the year as well. We really appreciate it on behalf of all the McVickers. So with that, I'm going to close out the official ceremony. People, you are welcome to stay on the Zoom channel for a few minutes. If you want to say anything to any of your colleagues, you can do that. We can just open up the mics, or people can go on with your day as you desire. I'm going to stay on for about 5 minutes and just say hi to a couple people. So thank you all.